All right, AP, you ready?
Yeah.
We've got comedian Dave Smith explaining jihad to everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dave Smith.
With
Okay,
Gary
Dave Smith, thanks so much
What's that?
with Gary Coleman.
for coming on my show.
Thank you for having me, Coleman. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, so you are one of the most, maybe the most requested guest I've had over the past 6 months to a year. You have made a name for yourself as a very effective debater on Joe Rogan, on Piers Morgan, Lex Friedman you've been on, as a critic of U.S. foreign policy and also Israeli, the war in Israel. So I want to get to all these topics, and I want to say first that I think a lot of your conversations have devolved into sort of referendums on you as a person, which to me is totally uninteresting. And I think my audience knows what my MO is and what I'm about. I'm about.
Wait, why would people be attacking Dave Smith as a person? Is that true?
People usually point out how terribly inconsistent he is and all that. If you're going to call that attacking his person, I don't know.
Yeah. So the point is, I don't know what this guy's talking about. I don't know if, normally if you're like bringing up arguments and saying, we need to stop this, we need to stop supporting Israel. And someone's like, oh, but you're an idiot. Look at your stupid face. Your beard looks stupid. I'd be like, well, it's irrelevant to his. Why don't you answer his argument, people? But I don't even know what Coleman's talking about with, anyone know? Anyone know? We'll keep watching and stuff, but if you guys know why people would be dismissing Dave Smith and attacking him, let me know.
Talking about the substantive issues that both of our audiences care about, like we, in the grand scheme of history, our egos as people don't matter all that much. So I want to say that, and I hope that...
Tell that to Candace Owens. Ego doesn't matter. What's wrong with you?
Can model that kind of conversation, though I expect us to disagree about many issues, if not most. Sound fair?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of why I was looking forward to doing this, because, not that we don't really know each other that well, but I've watched some of your stuff, and I've always kind of gotten that vibe from you, that was how you would approach this conversation. And despite the fact that I've been in my fair share of, like, mudslinging competitions, I generally do not prefer to do it that way. And I completely agree with you. I think it's like one of the challenges of doing what we do is that you're on a show and you're a public person, and the tendency to focus on oneself or to make.
Oh, little side note, everyone, because I said we're going to be talking about Islam and jihad. I think the first 6 or 7 minutes or something, they're talking about politics and how he ended up getting his ideas or something like that, and his political views. But in the course of that, they set up the discussion because he said he was basically questioning everything the government said about Islam and why Muslims are mad at us and things like that. So basically, just so we don't take the main part of their discussion about Islam out of context, I'm leaving in all this other stuff, even though some of the stuff here at the beginning is not going to be terribly relevant, but it comes up. It comes up in this opening part here.
Oneself the story, or for others to focus on the individual is it's very easy to fall into, and we all should remind ourselves, no matter where we fall on the issues, that there's actually people dying right now. There's actually a conflict going on. Like there's huge
Do you mean in Nigeria?
implications to all of this, and that's actually much more important than any of that other stuff. And so I am completely on board with that.
Okay, so
did he just go on for a minute and a half saying, yeah, you're right? Anyway.
Yes.
before we get into the issues, I imagine many people in my audience might be familiar with you enough to know your origin story, but you're a comedian that's found a second career as a political commentator. And so walk me through that. What inspired you to get into all of these issues?
Hey, I have to say the going from comedian to some sort of commentator or podcaster seems to work well because I mean, that's Joe Rogan in a nutshell. So anyway, seems to work well. You build up your comedy skills and then you're more entertaining when people watch you. Smart.
Well, I started stand-up comedy first, and I wasn't like political really at all. I mean, I was a little, like I grew up in New York City. I was in New York City on 9/11. I was like a left liberal for most of my life, but without being very well informed or anything. Just that was kind of the standard, starting point for like a Jewish kid raised by a single mom in Brooklyn. And then, so, after 9/11, I did grow to really dislike George W. Bush. The 9/11 and the war in Iraq were very much kind of, my coming of age time. And I was really against the war, and I was really against George W. Bush.
Hey, hang on. AP, also, in case anyone knows, the whole discussion about Islam, they're talking about 9/11 and the attacks and so on. And at least in this section, he doesn't come out with any like deranged conspiracy theory about the U.S. government doing it or the Jews, the dancing Jews or something like that. Anyone know, or AP, if this guy is not the crazy conspiracy theorist that we usually encounter? Anyone know? Because he didn't come out with one. Like, Coleman was talking about stuff. They're talking about 9/11, and I was just expecting, just because I hear it all the time now. I was expecting, but our government did this, or, this is the Jews. But all they talked about was why Muslims would not like us. So yeah, if anyone knows if he just, if he toes the party line that he's been spoon-fed from the U.S. government, which really carried out the attack, let me know. Anyway.
I knew enough to get that. And then it was just in 2007, I just happened to be watching the Republican primary debate, and I saw there was what's now become kind of like a viral, famous moment where Ron Paul and Rudy Giuliani go.
Hold up. Weck Street says, Dave is not a crazy conspiracy guy. He's an anti-war guy. Okay. I would regard anti-war guys as significantly better than crazy conspiracy guys.
At it, arguing over what causes terrorism and what led to 9/11. And I don't know, just the moment to me was really fascinating. And it's still, I think, no matter what your politics are, a very fascinating moment. Because at the time, Rudy Giuliani was polling number one. He was leading the pack. And Ron Paul is a complete unknown, just a congressman from Texas who's has no national presence. And Rudy Giuliani, in terms of the crowd reaction, dominates him in this exchange. But Ron Paul is just dropping wisdom. And then from that, it created this huge movement, and to this day is still something that people I'll see posted all the time. Granted, my algorithm might be a little biased on that, but
you think?
But and then I just fell down the rabbit hole. I was just so interested in that guy, so I went and got his book, and then I loved it. The book was Revolution. That was the first Ron Paul book that I ever read. And then I just started falling down the rabbit hole. And
if he keeps talking about, I'm trying to avoid jokes because this is a serious show. But quit talking about falling down holes, man. You're making it really, really difficult.
Reading everything I could get my hands on about libertarianism and foreign policy and just political theory in general, history, economics.
We get it. You love yourself. We get it.
Yes, I mastered every topic and I became the world's greatest political theorist in history.
And then I don't know. I was just, for a while there, I was just a stand-up comedian. I was making around this period of time, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, I was kind of just eking out a living. Some bigger comedians would bring me on the road with them. And so I was just like, I didn't have a day job. I could do I was doing just good enough to be dead broke without having a day job. And then essentially, right, I just had to work at nights. I had to go to nightclubs and tell jokes. But I had my whole days for free. And I wasn't married at the time. I didn't have kids at the time. And I just got obsessed with all of this stuff. And so I was just that guy. I was the guy, just being weird and reading all this stuff. And then...
1 second. Risky said, Dave, is true you're coming to Michigan? Yeah, we want to go to Michigan. We just haven't, there's nothing set. We haven't decided any dates and so on. I'm not sure how quickly this could happen because it's about to be winter up there. So we'd either have to jump on this quickly or wait until like spring or something like that. But yeah, so me, God Logic, AP, IP have all, hasn't been formalized or anything, but we've all come up with the idea, hey, why don't we head up, set up a God Logic thing like in a park there, and invite Muslims for discussion. So, but yeah, nothing set, nothing firm yet. Nothing firm yet.
Going to nightclubs and doing stand-up. And this is all really before like the podcast revolution. And then once the, podcasting just became so big, it was just like the next logical progression was like, oh, start talking about this on shows. And then years of doing that, I think I started in 2011 or 2012 podcasting. And then over the years, it just, little by little kind of picked up. And becoming friends with Joe Rogan is really helpful in this business, I've found.
Mm.
Oh, is that why he's so famous? He's friends with Joe Rogan? Would we have any clue who this guy is if it weren't for Joe Rogan?
Nay.
So it sounds like Ron Paul was very important to your evolution. What do you think are the most important things that Ron Paul got right?
So I guess the big one, right, like in the Giuliani moment was really him tearing down the lie, the propaganda, which dominated, like right after 9/11, which was the idea that the terrorists hate us for our freedom. And they hate our goodness and our wonderfulness or something like that. Like they would never like really exactly spell out what it was about our freedom, but like you're supposed to imagine that they're all motivated by like, I don't know, women in miniskirts or something like that, or our right to free speech. And he was like, well, look, like there is a whole other huge element to this here that actually drives this conflict. And that's that they hate us for what we're doing over there. And that there are real grievances they have with America's foreign policy. And here they are. And
okay, guys. So now he's raising the issue that started changing his mind because he'd heard that the reason these jihadis hate us is because of our freedom. It's because our freedom, they don't like us because of freedom, and they want to stop us from having freedom. And he's saying, what exactly about our freedom do they not like so much that they want to attack us? And then he said, by golly, I heard it from Ron Paul, who said, actually, it's not our freedom, it's that we keep doing stuff to them and we keep attacking them. And so they're just mad. They're just mad at us. They're upset because we keep attacking them. And that apparently made more sense to him. And so obviously, if this is correct, obviously it will be nothing but peace and harmony for many, many centuries between Islam and the West, up until the bad United States comes along and starts messing around in Muslim countries. And that's when, ladies and gentlemen, Muslims start getting upset with us.
I really wonder who really brought up this whole idea, or was this actually something that people thought that we're just being attacked? They're just attacking us because they don't like our freedoms.
They were saying that. They were saying that they hate our freedom. And keep in mind there's some things, right? Like keep in mind they are obsessed with controlling how women dress, so they do have a problem with women in miniskirts. They are obsessed with controlling what people say. That's why they always go right for blasphemy laws. They want blasphemy laws in the US. They want blasphemy laws in Canada. They want blasphemy laws in the UK. They want blasphemy laws in Germany and France and so on. So they're right. So it's true. They have a problem with our freedom and how we use it because Islam is supposed to control everything. But it's actually It's actually a bunch of things. So one, they don't like us because we're just non-Muslims. That's an important part of it. And these terrorist groups have said repeatedly, we would hate you for being non-Muslims, but we also hate you for this. They've said it. They will give multiple reasons for hating us. So there's that we're actually non-Muslims. The real significance of the United States doing stuff in Muslim lands is that we're a constant reminder that the world is not the way Islam says it's supposed to be. They're supposed to be in control. They're supposed to be in charge over us. Islam is supposed to expand and expand and expand until it takes over the entire world. And they're supposed to be in charge. And they feel incredibly weak because the United States is way more powerful, and it really enrages them. So there's that. And we'll see some other things as things goes along. But you could trace a lot of the hostility back to the Muslim sources. That kind of amplifies things quite a bit, whatever the situation is. But we'll be seeing that.
Powerful. Well, that's the thing. That's the issue. Had things been properly addressed in the past, had there been a proper attempt to really explain what the problem is, and not just a blanket weird statement of they hate our freedoms and all that, maybe things could have gone into a better direction. Maybe had they consulted David Wood back then and said, David Wood, can you please come here and educate us on why they are attacking us and why they hate us? And you could have told them about the Al-Zut. Things could have gone better, but so this whole narrative, of course, of they hate our freedoms might have just contributed to messing everything up and creating a little bit more ignorance. But the bad thing about all of this is not the ignorance. The bad thing about this is you can see the results of it, right? People are given a not so accurate narrative, and then they end up misunderstanding and underestimating the actual problem, which is the problem of Islam and why Islam has so much hate for the disbelievers. This is what's wrong with misinforming people. This is what's wrong with conspiracy theories. This is also wrong with what's wrong with with giving only half the information to the people. If you don't tell people what's really going on, people will start underestimating the problem. That's where we are today.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I wanted to cover this whole section is Coleman is basically along the lines in the discussion. His position's basically along the lines of, yeah, they are ticked off at what we do, but there seems to be an Islamic component in all of this. And Dave Smith is like, no, pretty much anyone would react that way. People from any religion would react the same way, and so on.
Like the Japanese.
Islam, yeah, and so Islam just isn't a significant factor in, death to America and all that stuff. But we'll see, because we're going to actually check out the Muslim sources, ladies and gentlemen.
It just so happens that only Muslims react this way, but it probably has nothing to do with Islam.
Yeah, anytime someone says it's, because this happened to them, it's like, okay, that same thing happened to every group in the world. Islam is reacting in a particular way. Why? Why does Islam react differently? Let's see.
Really examine those and think about, what is this worth it? Is this the right thing to be doing? Is this productive for America? Is this moral? And I think that by it, you have to almost put yourself back in 2007. This is still during the George W. Bush administration, and there was for someone like me, I had heard, say, liberals who were against the war, but I had never really heard anyone break it down like that. And there was something about it that kind of it was almost like a portal where it allowed you to access a perspective from outside of the American empire. And I remember there was something about that was really, I thought, profound to me, that you're okay, yeah, there's another perspective about the American empire from outside it. And they've got some real problems with this thing. And I found that to be very interesting. The other big thing was he really introduced the topic of the Federal Reserve. almost nobody else was talking about. I really like, I don't think I knew what the Federal Reserve was until I heard Ron Paul talking about it. I think if you had asked me, I would have been like, I guess they have some money put away somewhere and like the federal government keeps reserves of something. I don't think
It's a giant mattress with all our money under it.
I even knew. And once I started like reading about how the Federal Reserve actually works, it's like I was just blown away that how did no one ever tell me this? How was this never like taught to me in school? How, and so that I thought was very interesting. And then I think aside from that, just being like the truest public champion of free market economics,
This whole thing going to be about Ron Paul, man? The heck?
generally speaking. I mean, Ron Paul was so hardcore free market that like he made Milton Friedman look like a socialist. Like he was just, and he really, I think was like the only, or the most prominent public advocate of true, like peace and laissez-faire free markets. And it seemed to me to be the only one who really had the courage of his convictions as far as those ideas were concerned.
Okay, so now they're going to focus on the topic of Islam. Coleman's going to say, "All right, let's focus on that topic for a bit." I do want to point out, as far as Dave Smith's view, that hey, the reason terrorists want to take us out is because we've horribly abused them. That really upset them. You know, they were minding their own business over there, and we keep going over and dropping bombs on them, and helping the wrong regimes and stuff, and helping oppress these poor guys. And that's why they don't like us. That only works if you have no clue about anything in history, because this came up very early on in the nation when you had the Revolutionary War, and then American ships were no longer under the protection of the British Navy. And so pirates, Barbary pirates, Muslim pirates, started they take the ship, take all the stuff, and take all the people and hold them for ransom or make them slaves. And so John Adams and Thomas Jefferson set up a meeting with the ambassador. Let me read this little part real quick. So they met with the ambassador from Tripoli. Let's see. But one cannot get around this, from an article by Christopher Hitchens when he examined this. He wrote a book about this. It says, but one cannot get around what Jefferson heard when he went with John Adams to wait upon Tripoli's ambassador to London in March 1785. When they inquired by what right the Barbary states preyed upon American shipping, enslaving both crews and passengers, America's two foremost envoys were informed that, quote, it was written in the Quran that all nations who should not have acknowledged their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon whoever they could find and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and that every Muslim who should be slain in battle was sure to get to paradise. The discussion was, why are you guys attacking us? We've done nothing to you. We have never laid a hand on a Muslim. Why are you attacking us? What did we do? So, guys, this is the beginning of America. And as soon as America has ships that aren't protected by the British Navy, Muslim pirates start taking the ships and taking everyone as slaves. And American leaders are confused. Why are they attacking us? We had nothing to do with anything. So let's go meet with these guys and explain, hey, whatever you think about us, we're brand new. We've never done anything to you guys. Our nation has never touched you guys. Why are you attacking us? The response, again, it's written in the Quran that all nations who should not have acknowledged their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon whoever they could find and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and so on. So in other words, we're attacking you because you're not Muslims and you don't acknowledge us as superior. So anyway, what happened, guys, was, the U.S. started paying them massive amounts of money to not attack them. We'll pay you. We'll pay you not to attack us. And it started becoming a massive portion of the money that the United States had was being paid just to avoid pirates attacking. And people are complaining more and more. Why are we paying all this money for these guys not to attack us? And then eventually the U.S. has to decide, nope, we're gonna need a military here to be protecting our stuff. Point was, do they just hate us because of our freedoms? No, that's not true. Do they just hate us because, well, we've really been mean to them in Muslim countries? No, they hated us long before we ever did anything to them. But it just seems really comforting to people to be told, why do they hate you? Because of you. It's because you. It's because your government enraged them with all the mean stuff you do. And a lot of people just like that message nowadays. Guess what? It's complete nonsense. I mean, yeah, you can do stuff that's ticking people off, but guess what? They hated you already before you did anything. So you can't say, oh, they hated us and wanted to attack us because of what we did. Well, guess what? Before you did it, they were already hating you and attacking you.